What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Mr. Mustache MMA News. Today, I want to discuss UFC 287, break down what happened, what we saw, and discuss the future. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. All right, guys, Israel Adesanya defeated Alex Pereira to become, again, the world champion, UFC middleweight division. Took him the fuck out. Knockout, second round. Izzy, such an inspiring performance, right? I know leading up to it, I kind of talked a bunch of shit on how I just wasn't excited for the matchup. It really did nothing for the middleweight division. It really still does nothing for the middleweight division. It kind of goes back to as it was, right? And Alex, I'm assuming, is going to be moving up to 205. I think that weight cut is just way too much for him, especially seeing the videos coming out during his weight cut for this most recent fight. Looked like he was suffering pretty bad there. Alex looked good. He looked strong. It looked like he was really struggling with his confidence. I think that's Alex's biggest problem. Maybe his biggest success too, right? Even in his fourth fight with the guy that he's beaten 3 times, right? Guy who's stopped twice. You could almost just see it in his face, the hesitant, the self-doubt. When Izzy was kind of just going forward and marching him back in that first round in this fourth fight, I just saw nothing but self-doubt on Alex. Like, fuck, man. Like, this guy, like, I can't get this guy away from me. Like, this is the 4th fucking time I got to take this guy out. Like, I felt like the moment was just too much for him. And Izzy, he's built for those moments. He's a performer. He's an entertainer. So he was just trying to just go out there and just get that boogeyman off his back. And to be honest, it was very inspiring to watch. Seeing him just KO Alex like that in that fashion, the way he reacted afterwards, the way he taunted Alex's son, because Alex taunted him the first time he got KO'd back in kickboxing. It was just so inspiring. And as much as I hated on it, man, in that moment, man, I was jumping up, screaming at the fucking TV. It was a pretty phenomenal moment. I'm very happy for Izzy to get the title back. But that being said, the middleweight division is back to how it was. Very stuck in the mud. He's lapped the division already. Moving forward, I'd really like to see him go against like a guy like Sean Strickland. Who else was I thinking of? Dricus. He was talking a bunch of shit about Dricus, but Dricus has to get another win or two to get that title shot. I think Sean Strickland, the only hiccup was that Jared Cannonier fight and the Alex Pereira fight, but the Jared Cannonier fight, I honestly thought he won that fight. So, I mean, he's right up there. I think that he could definitely get that title shot next. He's new blood. Like, why not? He's already beat Whitaker twice, even though that last matchup was very close. But they even could make Strickland go against Dricus, maybe Strickland go against Whitaker for a number 1 contenders fight. Because I think if Whitaker can beat Strickland, or if Whitaker can beat Dricus in a good fashion, you can definitely argue for a third matchup against Izzy, right? But I think Sean and Dricus, they're both in a really good position right now in a division that's very stuck in the mud, that's already been lapped. Guys have already fought Izzy twice. So those guys are in very good position to strike while the iron is cold, per se. For Alex, I think him moving up to 205 or maybe even going up to heavyweight, I think would be really good for him. I think kind of not having that weight cut on his mind, all that pressure, all that drainage going into his fight, I think that can go a lot moving forward. He's no spring chicken. He's in his mid-30s. So I think Alex going up a weight class, I think that's the most logical move. I like that the UFC is trying to move away from like a 5th fight. Like, please, let's just get enough of this nonsense. It's over. Thank you guys for a phenomenal rivalry. Let's just fucking move on, right? So I'm very happy in that regard that the UFC is doing that. I think Alex, for the better of his future, for him to move up in weight will definitely be in his favor, right? I'm not really sure who he's going to fight moving forward. Probably a top 5 guy at 205. I know Hamzat was calling him out, but I don't think they're going to give Hamzat that fight. So at 205, he's got a plethora of matchups going on over there. So I'd like to see what's going to happen moving forward. I don't really want to speak too much until I find out if he's going to light heavyweight or if he's going straight to heavyweight. Moving forward, we have Gilbert Burns defeating George Masvidal, unanimous decision, where George, he just looked older. Just to say, unfortunately, he's just past that prime. His style, is just a fast twitch guy. He's more in his striking, his speed, his timing. He's never been more of a power guy. he catches guys with his athleticism. And now that athleticism has kind of left him a little bit, he can't really keep up with those top 5 guys anymore. And he pretty much said that in his post-fight speech. Where in the first round, things were a little interesting. When the second, Gilbert said, fuck entertaining you guys. I'm here to win. Took it to the ground, controlled him for the whole second round. And in that third round, you're going to see George, he was so tired. He couldn't move. Like, everything that fucking Gilbert was throwing at him, it was hitting him. He just couldn't move out of the way. He was so tired. But his heart was still in it. His chin, he still showed that he had a good chin. But in the end, Gilbert got the W. George retired. George, thank you for a phenomenal career. Street Jesus, Miami Jesus, thank you for everything. It's been phenomenal to see your combat sports career. Can't wait to see what you're going to do moving forward with Gamebred Promotions. Gilbert moving forward, I think a fight with either like Colby Covington. I was pretty shocked that like Bilal Muhammad was completely left out of the whole conversation. I thought that was really weird with the whole call-out thing. I thought that was maybe even a dig at Bilal, because I know Bilal was trying to get his name out there. He's trying to get the respect, and nobody's giving it to him. So I think a matchup with Gilbert Burns would be exciting. I think that would be the next logical matchup. Give Bilal his shot. Give him a top 4 guy, top 5 guy. I think that would be the right decision to make. Gilbert, I think he's 36 years old, so he's got to get it. He's got to get it now, and he's got to just stay active, right? And I think a fight against Bilal Muhammad gets him right in there in that title shot against Leon or Colby, whoever after Leon's next fight will be. Moving forward, again, guys, we had Rob Font defeating Adrian Yanez, first round knockout, and just completely steamrolled Adrian Yanez. And Rob Font just looked solid. He looked strong. He looked confident. And he's back on the winning track. Where Adrian Yanez, it just looked like the moment was too big for him. It looked like he just didn't really know what he was doing out there. And not to say he doesn't know what he's doing. I just think that big fight on the pay-per-view, all the pressure, everybody was on him. All the pressure was on him. Rob Font had nothing to lose at that. And Adrian, he went out there and he got his bell rung. He got clocked. And it just showed, it just seemed like he was more just reacting. He just seemed very just discombobulated. Everything was too much for him at the moment. I just think maybe with this knockout, I think is probably the best thing for him. So, okay, now he got that out of the way. Now he can go out and perform moving forward. He's young. He's hungry. He has a great future ahead of him. It just shows how this is Rob Font's time. He's been there. He's done that. He's taken his L's. Now he's going to be moving forward in the bantamweight division. For Rob Font, too, moving forward, I think that maybe a fight with Peter Yan, a fight with Song Yadong, maybe even an Umar Nurmagomedov would be a phenomenal matchup for him moving forward. He's kind of in this weird position where Merab is going to be fighting probably Corey Sandhagen, maybe even wait until what happens with Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo. You got Sean O'Malley waiting for a title shot. So I would say the most logical matchup for Rob Font moving forward is probably against Peter Yan, maybe a Ricky Simone. I think they fought before already. Maybe a matchup with Chris Gutierrez would probably be a really good matchup for him as well. But Rob Font, he went out there, made a huge statement to get his name back into title contention. And for Adrian Yanez, hey man, you went out there, you tried your best against, a top 10 guy. Moving forward, maybe like a Pedro Munoz, Chris Gutierrez, Jonathan Martinez. They might give him like an Umar Nurmagomedov or a Ricky Simone. He's kind of still in the same area. He didn't really lose any traction in this fight. With him taking this L, it probably could have been the best thing for him. And I hope that Adrian, he doesn't let this affect his confidence too much. So hopefully take some time off, go back to the drawing board, get himself a good matchup to get himself right back into that top 15 conversation. But phenomenal performance. Rob Font, can't wait to see what you're going to do moving forward. Up next, we got Kevin Holland defeated Santiago Ponzinibbio, third round knockout with a broken hand, went out there. I even talked about that in my previous videos that I was worried him coming back so soon after breaking his hand in his most recent loss to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson back in December. But he went out there, looked sharp, precise, long, big for the weight class. Like, he made Santiago Ponzinibbio look small, which is kind of weird. Like, I know Santiago's not very tall for the division, but he's very thick for the division. He packs a big punch. And Kevin Holland he made him look silly a lot. And I know that in Santiago's last performance, he got the dub against Alex Morono, but he didn't really look very solid doing it. He got caught a lot, and he was on skates a lot in that matchup. So most recently, he hasn't looked very solid, and he hasn't been very consistent since coming back from his most recent injury. I think it was a few years back where he got really hurt. He had, I think, a few infections, he had some hand injuries. He was like on the brink of death, and he was able to come back. So him even just competing again is a huge success. It's weird to see him kind of just be a shell of his former self, where at one point he was a very dangerous top 10 welterweight in the UFC. But Kevin Holland went out there with a broken right hand, knocked him out with the left hand. Santiago at first, he was arguing the stoppage, but man, dude, you went face down, ass up. It just showed how much he got knocked out that he just did not realize what happened to him. Like, Kevin Holland, he is just a special talent. So for him to go out, get that W, get his name back in the hat, can go out there and welterweight in the future and get a really good top 15 matchup. But he's got to take the time off, let himself heal, let himself rehab. He said he wants to do that as well. So I think maybe take 8 months to a year off and then get himself right back in it. And I think moving forward too, I think Kevin Holland can have matchups against guys like who the fuck was I thinking of? Gunnar Nelson, The Leech, D-Rod, Michel Pereira. He's fighting Sean Brady recently. He could fight Neil Magny, RDA. I mean, the plethora of matchups. Vicente Luque, if he really wants to get himself crazy, because Luque, even though he's coming off of 2 L's in a row, Luque is number 10 in welterweight currently. So, I mean, if Kevin Holland decides to take a lot of time off, he can come back and fight a big name like Luque, like RDA, like Neil Magny. Jack Della Maddalena is also a very good option for Kevin Holland moving forward. Santiago Ponzinibbio, with him taking this L, I mean, he's had a phenomenal career. He needs to go back to the drawing board, see what he's going to do moving forward. A Muslim Salikov would not be bad. A Chaos Williams would not be bad. A Gunnar Nelson would be a good matchup. Maybe even a D-Rod. I'd like to see something like that. That would probably be right in Santiago Ponzinibbio's alley moving forward. That being said, in our first prelim of the night, we had Christian Rodriguez gave Raul Rosas Jr. his first L in a phenomenal performance and a true veteran performance by Christian Rodriguez, where he just looked cool, calm, and collect, right? He didn't let the wrestling of Raul affect him in that first round, because in the first round, he just let Raul completely blow his wad, where in the second round, you see the gas tank was gone. He was done. He was tired, and Christian was just there. He was not going fucking anywhere. And he toyed with Raul for the rest of the fight. He was able to stuff all the takedowns, land phenomenal strikes on the feet, phenomenal strikes on the ground as well. He was able to reverse him on several occasions. He was able to get the body lock on him and just land devastating ground and pound throughout the rest of the fight, to where he looked like the true veteran out there. You know, it was funny, too, because a lot of people were talking about, it's weird when you say the 25-year-old in the fight is the old man, because it just shows how young Raul is. He was planning on going out there. He talked all this shit. He was going to be the youngest UFC champion ever. You know, but this fight also, this L, just like Adrian Yanez, as I said before, is going to be good for him. He needed this loss. He needed to be humbled a little bit in this way. The UFC put the big lights on him. They've made this mistake time and time again. I don't know why they do this with these young dudes, and they try and get the big bucks on these young, hyped up fighters. But then, 9 times out of 10, it fucking fails. Not everybody's a Conor McGregor. We saw what happened with CM Punk. We saw what happened with Sage Norcutt. We saw what happened with Darren Till. You push these guys too fast before they're ready. I know CM Punk was old and shit, but it's just an example of them taking these guys who just aren't ready and throwing them right on a pay-per-view. And it just makes the company look bad, But Raul, moving forward, he's a phenomenal talent, 18 years old. He got humbled, so now he needs to go back to the drawing board. Maybe some new coaches. Maybe kind of go out with some of these other veterans and kind of see how these guys do and kind of go under the wing of one of these guys. But he's a great talent. I like to see what he can do moving forward. I really couldn't give a matchup moving forward for a guy like him. Start from the bottom and work his way up. I think that's the best move for Rosas moving forward. A guy like Christian Rodriguez, that was awesome. I was super happy, man. He looked like a true veteran out there. He didn't let the moment get to him. First fight on a pay-per-view. he had a good record, 7-1 or 8-1 before that. So, I mean, moving forward, I could see him seeing against a guy like Pedro Munoz, maybe a Cody Garbrandt, Cody Stamen, get himself, because he showed that he's ready for the big lights. He's ready for the moment. He didn't let the moment get to him. He showed phenomenal fight IQ. So give him maybe, a top 15, top 18 guy, Pedro Munoz, Cody Garbrandt, maybe an Adrian Yanez moving forward. They could have set something like that up. That could be a possible matchup moving forward. But Christian Rodriguez, I am now officially a fan. I can't wait to see what you do moving forward. Phenomenal performance. All right, guys, moving to the prelims. We had Kelvin Gastelum defeating Chris Curtis in the middleweight division by unanimous decision in a super close fight, guys. Don't get me wrong. I personally thought that Chris had the edge in the fight. I thought he did a little bit more damage. But that headbutt that happened, I think it was in the second round, really kind of changed the whole narrative of the fight. And Chris took a lot of damage in that second round, which really looked bad on the judges. Chris looked really tired. His body language wasn't so good. So when you have these uneducated judges out there, that could play a huge effect on how they score a fight. And Kelvin, he looked good. He looked like he was pressing the pace a lot in the fight. He looked sharp. I'm glad to see him back. He needed that victory. He fucking needed that victory. I hope that he decides to go back down to welterweight. I have a haunting suspicion he's going to stay at middleweight, and I think that's a mistake, but I'd like to see him go down to welterweight. I'm curious to see what he's going to do moving forward, but for now, he's definitely saved his job with a phenomenal performance on the main prelim bout at UFC 287. Chris Curtis, same thing, doesn't lose any traction, had a great performance, easily could have got the dub out there. I personally thought he had the victory. I've been a fan of Chris since he's come into the UFC. And he's also a guy who's kind of a similar size as Kelvin. He's kind of a welterweight, but he works good at middleweight. Like, he has the speed to kind of fight at middleweight and keep himself in the top 15, top 10. But with him getting this L against a big name like Kelvin, I don't think he loses any traction here. And moving forward, I think a guy like Chris Curtis can get, maybe an Andre Muniz, a Nasruddin Imavov, something like that. Because now that he's taken the L, he's probably going to have to fight a guy who's below him. Maybe a Roman Dolidze. That would be a good matchup. A Dricus du Plessis. Who knows what the UFC is going to give Dricus next. Maybe even a Brad Tavares. That could be a good matchup moving forward. Or even a Gerald Meerschaert, who we're about to be talking about here shortly. So Chris, I don't think he lost much traction, but now he's going to kind of be put in this spot where he's going to fight a lot of the up-and-comers. So he's probably have to get about 2 or 3 victories now to kind of get himself back into that top 10 conversation. But I don't really thought he lost too much traction going into this fight. Very, very great performance by both guys. Like, should have been on the pay-per-view 100%, but nonetheless, super happy for both guys. Put on a great performance. Moving forward, we have the Luna Pinheiro versus Michelle Waterson matchup. I didn't watch too much of that fight. I was cooking during that matchup, so I can't really speak too much on the fight, so I can't say. But I do remember when I was watching a little bit of it, I was thinking Michelle was winning the fight, so to see her not get the victory was a little weird, but I didn't watch it enough to actually have a legit opinion on the matchup. Moving forward, guys, we got Joe Pyfer defeating Gerald Meerschaert, first round knockout via left hook. Joe just looks strong, man, athletic, big for middleweight. Didn't let the moment get to him, so I'd like to see him get a really good matchup moving forward. He was able to put out a savvy veteran like Gerald Meerschaert and capitalize on Gerald's holes, you could say, per se, because I don't like to say he's chinny, but he has a habit of getting knocked out against really strong strikers, dynamic strikers. So Joe Pyfer moving forward, I'd like to see him fight a guy like Brad Tavares, Nasruddin Imavov, maybe an Andre Muniz or a Brendan Allen. They could even have him go against a guy like Chris Curtis, who just came off the loss. So that could definitely be a matchup that we could see moving forward as well. But Joe Pyfer, he was looked really good in his first 2 UFC fights where he's been able to put these guys out, show that he's a really strong, athletic middleweight, dynamite in his fucking hands, so I can't wait to see what he's going to do moving forward. Gerald Meerschaert, now he's showing a little bit of inconsistency. He had the loss to Jocko, came back, beat Bruno Silva. Now he got the L to Joe Pyfer, where before he had that 3-fight win streak, all by finishes. So Gerald, he has the ability on a really good night to be a very formidable opponent against anybody in the middleweight division. But when he's off and he can't get it going, because he's a very slow starter, so when these big, strong strikers catch him early, it usually ends up really bad for him. But he's still dangerous as ever. So, I mean, even though he took this loss to Joe Pyfer, I don't think that he's going to lose a lot of traction just because it just shows how good Joe Pyfer is. So we might see him against a guy like Anthony Hernandez, Joaquin Buckley, maybe a Brad Tavares. I've talked about him a lot tonight because he's been a little bit inactive. Maybe an Edmund Shabazian, Nasruddin Imavov. We can see him kind of getting some of those matchups there. Maybe a Phil Hawes. But for Joe Mearshart, definite savvy veteran in the UFC. Always a fan. Always love it when he goes out and steps in the octagon because you're usually going to see a finish, win or lose. But I always root for Jared, win or lose. Yeah, so great performance, guys. Moving forward, we had Lupi Gomez defeating Cynthia Calvillo. Man, watching this fight, it was tough to watch Cynthia take a 5th straight L. Because when she started in the UFC, man, I've watched literally every single one of this girl's fights in the UFC. Like, when she started out fast, hot. She became like a contender super fast in the division that was kind of weak at the time. Because this was like 5 years ago. And she went out there and beat Joanne Calderwood, Pearl Gonzalez, Amanda Cooper. Had the loss to Carla Esparza, where I think that was a fight where I even thought that she won. Beat Courtney Casey, beat Jessica Ai, had the draw to Marina Rodriguez. All these fights, she looked fucking good. She did have that suspension where she popped for weed, which was a bunch of bullshit. And I think ever since then, she just hasn't been consistent. And then when she went up to flyweight, you saw her try and kind of take advantage of like a lukewarm weight class, but she wasn't able to compete with those girls, unfortunately, where she lost to Kaylin Chukagian, got finished by Jessica Andrade, finished by Andrea Lee, lost to Nina Nunez, and then now most recently lost to Lupi Godinez in a matchup where it was very competitive and she looked good in the fight, but ever since she went up to 125, she just hasn't been herself. And now I don't want to say age is catching up to her because I think that's kind of rude. Because I think that she looked good against Lupi, but there's something going on there where maybe it's just a lack of confidence. Because when she started out 9-1, so to see her on this 5-fight losing streak, she very well could be getting released here by the UFC very shortly. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, but it sucks to see that because I've been a fan of her for so long, and I think that she still has it in her to still go out there and get some victories and be in title contention. But I think she's got to get that done at strawweight. This was her return to strawweight, but all the inconsistency, she had to get her feet back in the water. And with her getting this L, who knows, man, it's tough. So, I mean, if the UFC decides to keep her, she should definitely start from scratch and just work her way up and get herself back into title contention, kind of like what Carla Esparza did. But she's got a long road ahead of her if she decides that she wants to continue competing. It's unfortunate to see. Big fan of Cynthia. If you decide to keep going, I'm definitely going to watch. Definitely going to root for you. Lupi moving forward had a good performance. It was really nice to see her fight against a big name like Cynthia Calvillo and get the dub. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen moving forward with Lupi in the strawweight division. Guys, moving forward, sorry. Yeah, we had Ignacio Bahamondes beating Trey Ogden. I missed this matchup. I was kind of coming home from work at that time, so I didn't really get to watch it. I remember the crowd booing a lot, and I remember the end of the fight kind of watching like they weren't really engaging all that much. But I can't really have an opinion. But Ignacio got the victory, so it seems that he's still in the winning track, still looking good. I'm sure the UFC is going to still try and push him at either lightweight or welterweight. Steve Garcia in our next matchup defeats Shailen Nordembeka KO to the body the second round in a fight where Steve looked powerful, man. He was, because Shailen, he's 28 years old, but he's got like 50 fights. Like, that dude is a veteran of the sport of MMA. He has fight up to 13 times in a year back in China. So the guy, he's been out there, he's been able to stay healthy, stay consistent, get a lot of victories. So to go against a guy like Steve Garcia just shows how good Steve is, right? Steve went out there, showed that he could stay calm, stay composed, fight off the tough and durable Shailen Nordembeka, and be able to stop him like that with his hands. Man, phenomenal fight for Steve Garcia. I can't wait to see what he's going to do moving forward. Shailen, I'm happy to see that he was able to get back and fight again after the whole weird stuff that happened with Derek Minner and the James Krause situation where he got caught up with the whole fight betting scandal over there. It sucked that he kind of got mixed up with all that, but I'm happy that he was able to kind of just stay away from all that and just kind of move on moving forward. But in the future, I think Nordembeka, what he's shown us already, I think if he can kind of just piece those things together, he can be very dangerous in the featherweight division moving forward. So I can't wait to see Shailen Nordembeka also moving forward. Guys, also, for last but not least, we had Sam Hughes starting off the night, defeating Jacqueline Amarim, I think her name was. Or Amarim, I think she was like the big like name going into that fight. And to see Sam Hughes fight off those rear naked chokes where you thought she was done. Like most people would have tapped, gone out. No, she fought it off. She was able to fight those submissions off. And she was able to go out and outclass her, outwork her, out MMA her to get the victory by unanimous decision. Phenomenal, inspiring performance by Sam Hughes. And she is a veteran in the UFC. I can't wait to see what she's going to do moving forward. I don't care who she fights next. I'm going to fucking watch that fight. But for Jacqueline, don't take it too hard on yourself because, yeah, you went out there and got the L, but you look good early. You fought a girl who's fought other top, really formidable opponents. She's had really good experience going in there. So just go out there. Don't take it as an L. Take it as experience. I can't wait to see what you're going to do moving forward as well. Guys, that's going to do it for UFC 287, the full breakdown, my first full breakdown. So let me know how I did. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about these matchups, what you guys thought about UFC 287, and what you guys think is going to happen moving forward. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, guys, to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. All right, guys, Mr. Mustache, MMA News out. Let's fucking go, fight fans.